Hi, welcome back everyone. In this video I'm going to talk about the build that I wanted to make for quite some time now. Personally, my favorite Uber boss is Uber Elder. You don't need to run around, arena is small, and the fight is pretty straightforward. Also, this is one of the most profitable boss that you can do if you sell NID items. And the icing on the cake is that you can also do the boss carry service from TFT, so this way you can earn some additional divines and vouchers in the TFT server. So, I was always wondering, is there a way to make 100% AFK Uber Elder bosser? And I mean it. Not you standing in the middle and casting Spark or Molten Strike, but being 100% AFK. Working, watching a movie, crafting some gear or talking with the chat. There are some videos on YouTube with another 100% AFK builds, but they're all either casual stun builds or straight up righteous fire builds. But the problem with those builds is that you either need insane level of investments, or it will take you up to 10 minutes to kill the boss, or most of the time, both. So in this video I'm going to present you my take on doing 100% AFK Uber Elder, and an interesting tech about making your animated guardian practically immortal for any build. This character can do all bosses with some changes and even map without any problems, but about that later. Okay, this build costed me less than 80 divines to make, but if this video gets popular, it might jump to over 150. But honestly, most of the items are not that hard to get, but who knows what will happen. Okay, but before we begin, if by the end of the video you will think that I did a great job, don't forget to like and subscribe. Because most of my viewers comes from unsubscribed views, so if this is your first time watching my video, I would definitely recommend you watching my other videos, as I'm mainly focusing on interesting and off-meta builds, and you will definitely find something interesting there. Also, if you would like to see me play and theory crowd builds live, ask a question or just have a chat, feel free to follow me on Twitch. Now, please make sure to watch the video entirely, as this build requires a lot of attention to the roles of the items, especially with attributes and the resistance. Okay, let's get started with the build. This build is based around my other character that I made several weeks ago. That build was meant to be the cheapest, comfortable, tanky Uber killer. So if any of you interested, feel free to check it out. Okay, before we can do AFK Uber, we need to solve several problems. First one is being survivability. There are several skills that we need to be wary about. First one is Shaper Slam. This is one of the strongest physical hitting abilities in the game. Next one is Shaper Bows. They deal strong cold damage with high cold resistance penetration. Then the next one is Shaper Beam. It deals damage over time of each element. And the next one, cold dots that spawn from the minions. And last but not least, Elder abilities. But if you can tank Shaper skills, Elder is not really a problem. And because of that, I'm not going to say pretty much anything about him. So, how we are going to be able to tank everything? Let's start with the Ascendancy first. There is no Ascendancy better than Chieftain if you want to be strong against elemental damage. The combination of Cleanse the Water and Storm's Embrace will allow us to focus on fire resistance while benefiting the rest. We can get up to 90% with combination of couple passives, Purity of Fire, Flasks, Graft, and Implicits on the item. But just having high resistance is not enough for Shaper Beam, nor for the boss. The best way to get defense against boss would be either suppression, but that's pretty much impossible to get on this build, and the other way is to convert incoming damage. The best way to do so would be using Purity of Fire Sublime, but that's just too expensive for me. So I'm going to use a combination of Dawnbreaker, Watchers with Purity of Fire conversion, and the last one is Tempered by Keystone from Lethal Pride. This will give us 90% conversion of lightning and cold damage to fire, so this way we don't really care about cold penetration from Shaper Bows. Another thing that is great about Chieftain is that this Ascendancy help offset the downside of the Tempered by War Keystone. Okay, this solves Shaper Bow problems, but what about his Slam? Dawnbreaker already converts some of the physical damage to fire, so we can push it even further with the Cloak of Flame and Implicit on the helmet. Doing this will convert more than half of his physical damage to fire, so that our fire resistance can help to mitigate the damage. But just converting the damage is not enough. We need to have some source of reduced damage taken. For this purpose I'm using Arctic Armor, Flesh and Stone, Nature Affinity Jewel, Bloodline Ascendancy, Fortify, and some endurance charges. Great. Now we have amazing level of defense against several strong hitting skills. But what about the dots? Unfortunately, having high damage mitigation is not enough against dot. We need to have great levels of recovery as well. Usually people are achieving it with Leech, but it's not going to work for my damaging skill, so my only real option is getting high life regeneration. The biggest chunk of my life regeneration comes from Fire Mastery, where I'm getting flat regeneration per overcap resistance. Then I'm getting some life regen from the tattoos, helmet, Mount on the Watcher, grafts, tasks. Basically we need to get as much life regeneration as possible. My current version has around 3000 life regen without the graft, and it jumps to over 4000 when I get buff from the graft. This is enough to stand in the Shaper Beam and something like 5 to 10 cold dot balls from the minions. Combining everything I said above, this build is pretty much immortal for Uber Elder fight. And please note that I have yet to mention any guard skill. All of those defenses are not conditional, and I'm able to face stun anything without it. For the guard skill of my choice, I'm using Steel Skin and Heart of Flame for the graft. You might be wondering, why am I using Steel Skin instead of Immortal Coal? The reason is pretty simple. Immortal Coal will consume all of our endurance charges, and because we are gaining them from our Warcry, we are not gaining them fast enough. But about that later. Well, this is the first stepping stone in being able to achieve 100% AFK of this fight. With this level of defense, we can face tank the most abilities in the game. Memory game, with Guard skill up, not a problem. Shaper, Elder, Eater, Cortex, those fights are joke to us. You will be able to face tank Cyrus abilities, but for that you need to get higher Chaos Res. For that you might swap the Red Dream Jewel to get Chaos Res for Endurance charges and get Amethyst Flask. This way you should be able to face tank the Cyrus without any problems. Don't forget to get CB immunity somewhere. The only real problem is Uber Exarch. Honestly, I kinda don't know why I'm not able to tank the Annihilation attack, but I don't really like that boss, so I'm going to leave it up to you to figure out the solution for that fight. Okay, and last but not least, some of you might notice that I'm not using Progenesis in my defense setup. The reason is pretty simple. You just won't be able to gain enough charges to sustain it 100%, so I'm just not using it. You might use Progenesis for mapping setup, but that's up to you. Now, finishing with the defense, and it's time to talk about the offense. And this is the hard part. I was theory crafting a lot of potential damaging setups. I tried Spectres, AG, Minion Stability, Custom Damage Taking setup, Bladefall Thratos, Hidden Blade. Basically, I have tried almost every possible ways of dealing damage without doing anything. Unfortunately, nothing was good enough for me to do Uber quick enough. You might ask, why the damage is a problem when you are immortal? There are two answers for that. The first one, no one wants to do Uber in 10 minutes. Yeah, you are AFKing, but still it's too much. And the other one, the more important one, if you prolong the fight, you are going to spawn crazy amount of ground degens and you just won't be able to overregen them. So the damage is kinda important. So, one of the best, if not only, solution to my problem was Generous Cry. Originally, I was thinking of doing something with slams. Tectonic Slam, Concentrated Path, Volcanic Fissure of Snaking, and so on. But the damage was not really enough. And then I was thinking, why not go for a good old Blade Fury Generous Cry build? Unfortunately, I couldn't really figure out the way of dealing enough damage with the default version. It requires too much investment into the damage, and since our defense is a priority, I couldn't do it. This is why I decided to go into a bit of unusual way. And I'm talking about going Poison, Perfect Agony, Generous Cry, Blade Fury build. Sounds interesting, right? Perfect Agony makes our crit multi to apply to dot multi instead, making it much easier to get high amount of damage multiplier, which is usually unavailable for other dot builds. But now, in order for us to benefit from it, we need to have 100% critical strike chance, as without it we won't be dealing any damage. This is one of the reasons why I decided to use Dagger as my main hand weapon. Daggers has somewhat high base critical strike chance, they have one of the greatest scaling on the tree with some interesting masteries, combine it with the Angel's Harmony Amulet and some power charges, and you're basically crit cap without real investments into it. Okay, now we can scale the damage with crit multi, deal only critical strikes. But what about chance to poison? Usually it's pretty annoying to get that stat. Herald of Agony, chance to poison, couple passes on the tree, but that's basically it. But here's where my choice of Dagger comes into the help. Daggers have one of the craziest poison passive, Other's Touch. This one passive solves our poison chance entirely. To boost the damage even further, I decided to go into Frenzy stacking route with combination of Frenzy from Relicash and Alessa's Delight Bell, which will convert Frenzies into Affliction charges. With this combination we are gaining crazy amount of more multiplier damage for our main skill. Another way of getting huge amount of damage for poison, or any chaos skill in general, is Wither. In this build I'm getting Wither with the help of Overwhelming Malice class her passive, which has a chance to grant us Unholy Might on critical strike. An Unholy Might is a buff that converts 100% of our physical damage to chaos and give us 25% chance to apply Wither on hit. And last but not least, since this build is a poison build, it's really hard to beat Betrayal's Sting Ring when it comes to the damage. And finally, I'm quickly going to talk about General Cry's Blade Fury skill interaction. This skill combination behaves extremely weird. I'm not going to talk about it in this video and going to leave a link for the Reddit post where you can get some additional information, but long story short, you want to have 2.3 seconds of cooldown on your General's Cry with more than 6 attacks per second with the Blade Fury. To get General's Cry cooldown to 2.3 seconds, you basically don't need to do anything outside of getting 20 quality auto exertion gem. And in order for you to get more than 6 attack per second, you just need to have good dagger, grab some passes on the tree, large cluster, and that's basically it. But unfortunately, while I was making the version with Blade Fury, I had one thought in my mind. If you are using channeling skills with General's Cry, Mirage Warriors will start channeling immediately and won't move a single step. And how is that might be a problem, you ask? The problem lies in the Shaper. He's constantly teleporting around and most of the time he's too far away from the range of your Mirage Warriors, and this is a huge problem. Yeah, he will sometimes teleport to you close enough, but that's just too unreliable. And this is why I started to theory craft solution for this problem. I tried doing something like custom damage taking frost blink, so that when I take damage from the Shaper, I will blink towards him. It's better than just standing still, but this way we are dodging too much attacks and not able to sustain Flask, and about them a bit later. Then I tried to change the main skill. I tried with a lot of other skills. Charge Dash and Cyclone were the top ones, with decent balance of damage and reach for the Shaper, but not good enough for me. Then I tried Flicker Strike, but unfortunately this skill doesn't really work with the Mirage Warriors. I tried Rage Vortex, I tried Blade Storm. By the way, for those of you who doesn't know, Mirage Warriors have their own skill limit, so it basically means that you can spam more Blade Storm than default limit. You can do something similar with Earthquake, where each Mirage Warrior will create its own Aftershock, and so on. I tried the other default skill for General Cry and nothing was good enough for me. Then I suddenly remember about Static Strike and its interaction with the General's Cry. The cool thing about this interaction is that when Mirage Warrior attack once, they are removed, but the chaining beam from the Static Strike is not despawned, and it just stays on the ground where the Mirage Warrior was, and this was perfect. They just run towards the Shaper, attack him once, and the beams continue zapping him even after they are removed. Also because of this, and built-in chain, this skill is really great for mapping content as well. So right now I have two main setups. One setup with Blade Fury or Static Strike for active gameplay, and the Static Strike for pure AFK. Okay, this is it when it comes to the key interactions of the build. Now let's move forward to the gear and the rest of the build. Make sure to watch the rest of the video, as there are still a lot of important pieces of information regarding the itemization and the tree. Make sure to pay attention to your attribute requirements and resistances. This build requires you to do some thinking and planning for sure. For the weapon, I'm using Pneumatic Dagger with triple flat prefix and crit multi with attack speed suffix. This dagger is kinda easy to craft, but really annoying. You have two main ways of doing so. The first one, more expensive, you buy Fracture T1 prefix base and essence spam, or go with the recombinator. I have crafted this dagger using the second method. If you're curious how to craft it, you can ask me in the Discord server or where I'm live or stream. It's not that hard to craft, but it requires a lot of alt spamming. For the shield, I'm using Downbreaker. You need to get as much physical and code conversion as possible. The implicit for the life is not really necessary for AFK and Uber, but for the rest of the bosses it's a nice thing to have. The helmet is a rare helmet with increased life regeneration, double tier 1 resistances. Don't forget that you can change it via Harvest Bench, and we need as much fire resistance as possible and as much life as possible. For the implicits, depending on the type of the content you want to run, either default version of physical damage taken as fire and fire recoup, or if you are going to do only bossing, then pinnacle versions of them. When it comes to the body, I have two items. Cloak of Flame is for AFK setup. You need to have +1 maximum resistance, while reduced fire, cold damage or like maximum life are optional. And the other body is Covenant, which I was using for active gameplay and bossing. Please note that with the Covenant we are barely able to tank average Uber Shaper Slam, so you're going to die sometimes depending on the roll of the damage. For the gloves, I'm using random double crafted rare gloves with +1 Frenzy and Despair Curse on hit. Try to get something useful on the gloves like life, resistance, regen, and so on. The boots are Frenzy Ralakesh with +1 Endurance Corruption. Endurance is not really necessary, but it's a great source of the damage mitigation. Also you can get increased life there as well. The amulet is Angelus Harmony with +1 maximum resistances and as much critical strike chance as possible. Don't forget to catalyst it with the Tainted Catalyst. The rings are double Betrayal Stings. Make sure to get mark % for double poison and don't forget to catalyst as well. Also pay attention to your resistances, as they are reducing it. By the way, those rings are a great way to get some additional chaos resistance for mapping our Cyrus fight. The belt is Olesa Delight. Try to get life corruption here and another useful implicit if you can. Okay, now about the flasks. They are extremely important for this build and we are able to sustain them pretty easily. Every single one of them has gained 3 charges when you are hit. I have triple LRS flask with Bismuth and Sulfur flask. The suffixes I'm using are Regenerate Life, 15 damage taken leech, additional resistance, chance to avoid shock and reduce shock effect for the Shaping Beam, as we are not elemental immune, so this way we can basically don't care about being shocked during the fight. Next are the growths, and they're also extremely important. First one is Molten Zov Growth with +2 maximum fire resistance and % life regenerated per endurance charge. It doesn't really necessarily need to be on this one, and you might get these implicit on the other one. The rest of the mods doesn't really matter, but try to get increased cooldown recovery if you can. And the other growth, maybe is even more important, is Hardening Wool Growth, with tier 1 increased % maximum life and more life recovery suffix. +4 levels would give you less than tier 1 recovery, so try to get it. Okay, finally let's move to the Ascendancy. I'm using Sun's Roar for Warcry power effect and Cleansing Water with Storm's Embrace for the resistances. And for the Bloodline, I'm using Breachlord Bloodline with Otherworldly passive for some survivability. Now let's talk about the tree. This is pretty optimized tree and there is nothing really that you can remove from here. I would recommend you swapping on this build at level 98 or above. It's really stretched out, but you really can't do nothing with it. I'm getting some life, Fire Mastery for crazy flat life regen, some max resistances, more life, Hearty for big life regeneration increase, endurance charges, some more life, endurance and frenzy, and some more frenzy passive and important charge duration mastery. Now about this mastery. In this build, I'm relying on Mob Mentality cluster passive for charge generation. Each Warcry will generate random charge. The default charge duration is 10 seconds. Cooldown of our General's Cry is 2.3 seconds. So basically we are generating 4 charges per second. And since we are using all 3 of them, there is 20% chance for us not to get the right charge and it will disappear entirely. But with the help of this mastery, our charge duration is 20 seconds, so this way we have around 3% chance not to get the right charge. So it will happen sometimes, but it won't be that noticeable. Also don't forget that we have some endurance charge duration here, and the graph also will give us some endurance charges, so the chances of us losing one type of the charges is kinda low. Continue with the tree, I'm getting some more life. Depending on the setup, I'm taking rune graph for level of separate gens here for the Covenant, and life mastery for percent life here for the Croc of Flame. Then more frenzies and some crit multi here. Perfect agony, more life, accuracy, frenzy, and all of the dagger passive with poison mastery. Also, don't forget to use as much tattoos as you can get. But again, check your attribute requirements. Okay, moving forward to the jewels. In this socket, I'm using Foulborn Red Dream with resistances grant some life with a combination of fire resistance tattoos. If you have higher budget, you can get one with Chaos Raspberry Endurance charges here. Then large dagger cluster with increased effect, some life, attack speed, and necessary attributes. Since this slick claw accuracy stacker is really popular, this cluster might be a bit expensive, because usually they're really cheap. Then for the medium, I'm using one with Mob Mentality for charges and Lead by Example for Onslaught. And one of my favorite jewels, Nature Affinity here with Reservation Efficiency Corruption. On the other side, I'm using 4 passive medium cluster with Overwhelming Malice, and it's important to use 4 passive, as if you are using 5, you might not be able to get the jewel socket in one point. And for the last small cluster, I'm using Reservation cluster with 35% increased effect and a lot of attributes with resistance. Life is not really necessary, but it's nice. Don't forget that you can change resistances via Harvest Bench. Next jewel is Watcher with 20% of cold and lightning damage taken as fire, increased life recovery from Vitality. This is better compared to the just let life regen from Vitality, as we gain the same value just from several tattoos. And the third node is any useful node that you can get. My Watcher is pretty much best in slot and you won't really be able to get it, cause I was looking for this one for the entire league and this is the only one I ever saw. Next jewel is Little Pride Rakiata for Tempered by War Keystone with some life and crit multi. And the last jewel is Light of the Meaning with increased chaos damage per near passive. Finally, let's talk about the gems. In the gloves, I have Aura setup with Purity of Fire, Flesh and Stone, Petrified Blood, and Enlighten. In the helmet, Arctic Armor, not linked with other 3 sockets, which are Steel Skin, Life Tap, and Custom Damage taken. As I said earlier in the video, Steel Skin is better, as our Endurance charge generation is not that fast. Then, in the shield, Arrogant setup with Precision and Vitality. Then, 2 different setups in the boot. For the AFK bossing, I'm using Firestorm of Pelting with Life Tap and Custom Damage taken. You can use any skill here with a lot of projectiles. I'm using it to proc Overwhelming Malice cluster passive, and it's mandatory. And Desecrate, not linked with Custom Damage taken. And the other setup is for mapping. Standard Cyclone with cast while channeling Desecrate. Cyclone of Tumult is better than default one, cause it doesn't decrease our movement speed. Then in the body armor damaging setup for active gameplay, Generous Cry, linked with Auto Exertion, Awaken Unbound, Awaken Deadly Ailments, Cruelty, and Blade Fury. And AFK setup in the Cloak of Flame is Generous Cry, Auto Exertion, Static Strike, Awaken Edit Chaos, Unbound, and Deadly Ailments. And the last but not least, it's time to talk about the AG and how I made him practically immortal. In this setup, I'm using normal version of AG with Empower and Minion Life. And now you should be wondering, how he is surviving and what benefits I'm getting from him. It's all possible due to a new Foulborn unique GGG introduced this league. Foulborn Ghost Worthy Body Armor sets your maximum energy shield as 50% of your maximum life. You can use Tailoring Orb to increase this number even further. Now combine it with the Mask of the Demon helmet and your AG will have insane levels of recovery. With my current setup, he has 37k life and 15k life regeneration per second. Please note that every single point on your tree, tattoo or increased life on his gear is extremely important. For example, I only removed 1 tattoo from the tree and because of this, my AG that died 0 times started dying once every 10 Ubers or so. So yeah, if you're going to use it in any other build, try to get him some additional life, use Mute Shield if you can. Okay, Now he is able to survive anything. What's even the point of using him? For my build, I'm using him for 2 reasons. First one is his weapon. Kingmaker gives me 50% crit multi, fortify and culling strike, basically for free. It's so crazy. Also, I'm using combination of Curse on Hit gloves with the additional Curse boots, which boost my damage even further. Sound bounce gloves are perfect for my build because they give huge amount of life and cold resistance, which is necessary for tanky chamber bows. And again, try to get as much life as possible. But what about any other build? Let's say you're not crit based build. How can you benefit from it? Then you can just use some explosion weapon with the combination of Grapevine gloves, maybe even minion mastery for increased AoE. This way you can add explosion to any build practically for nothing. I hope more people would use this tech, and I wish GGG would find a way to add Foulborn uniques to the next league. And at the end, let's talk about how to play this build. It's extremely simple. You just enter arena, stand here, spawn Desecrate, how I'm showing here. This way your Mirage warriors will have better coverage when Shaper teleports at the bottom of the screen. And that's it. You just AFK. Watch a movie, work, craft some items, and after around 4 minutes, the boss is dead. You loot and repeat. Also want to squeeze some additional profit? Don't forget that you can do boss carry. Just post your message in the TFT and wipe people at the last phase. Well, this is it guys. The build turned out even better than I was expecting. With this, I was able to achieve one of my all-time goals of doing 100% AFK Uber Elder. I hope that you will enjoy this build as much as I did. If you are new to the channel, I definitely recommend you watching some of my other videos, as you will find something interesting there for sure. Unfortunately, this video took me some time, and while I was making it, I managed to make another 2 interesting and off-meta builds with interesting tech. If you are curious, feel free to follow me on Twitch. If you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, as it motivates me to make more videos and builds. If you want to watch me play live, ask a question or just have a chat, feel free to follow me on Twitch. And if you wish to support me financially, there are links in the description below. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!